But look, what did it take for us to get to the point of an apology? We had to threaten a lawsuit, Jesse. And by the way, we're still entertaining it. We're talking to some of the best lawyers out there that are experts in this. And as you know, these things can be very complicated. There's a lot of facts and circumstances around it. But we're not going to let this go, because you should not be able to smear 5,000 high school and college kids and then just be able to walk away with it. And the reason they felt they needed to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are super expensive, that 5,000 kids decided to spend a weekend in summer traveling across the country to go hear from conservative speakers, maybe the audience of The View would think twice about all of their ideas. That's why they felt so compelled to try to smear our wonderful summit this last.
Happens when Charlie Kirk files a $100 million lawsuit against The View and Sunny host emotionally unravels on live television. You get a full-blown legal circus, a daytime soap opera, and an accidental comedy special all mashed into one. Buckle up as Sunny starts to spiral. Whoopi throws piercing looks, and Charlie does his best to convince America that he's the one truly wounded by words alone. This on-air meltdown comes packed with tears, legal threats, and so much raw chaos it might just make Judge Judy consider early retirement. And wait till you see who breaks down first. Spoiler. It's not the attorney.
Charlie Kirk's the founder and CEO of Turning Point USA and the author of the new book, The College Scam. So, Charlie, do you accept The View's apology?
I mean, regardless of whether or not I accept it, the question is, do our students accept it? That's really what's at heart here. They went after our 5,000 students at our event there of high school and college kids. And look, I get attacked all the time. People say false things. I'm a public figure. But when you go after 16 and 17-year-olds that travel from across the country that then have to live for the rest of their life with a shadow over them because someone at ABC says that they might be linked to
the dazzling $100 million lawsuit. A number so outrageously huge it feels less like a legal demand and more like Charlie Kirk's master plan to buy a private island complete with its own theme park. Or maybe a fleet of luxury jets ready to fly him far away from the chaos he so deliberately stirred up. Just the size of that figure alone commands a spotlight, painting a picture of extravagance and bold ambition straight out of
her disgusting, gross elitism and her complete out-of-touch nature with respect to the rest of the world. Sunny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men actually voting more for him, and you have and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the.
At the center of this theatrical legal showdown stands View, that televised storm in a teacup, posing as a platform for thoughtful conversation. It's less of a discussion panel and more of a chaotic shouting contest, where any hint of nuance is instantly swept away by a tidal wave of overcharged emotions. Every topic, no matter how trivial, is treated like a full-blown emergency. For years, the show has thrived on daily drama, transforming harmless celebrity chatter into moral crusades and turning political debates into personal battlegrounds.
Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach. But I said this to our team. I said working people, the muscular class, including working women, they are so in favor of Trump, and they don't want to be called stupid or uneducated.
Imagine a round table of professional interrupters who seem to believe that eye-rolling counts as a winning argument. For years, this chattering circle has dressed up outrage as wisdom, repackaging empty noise as profound truth. What's labeled as conversation is often just coordinated gasps, where even mildly different opinions are met with the kind of dramatic shock you'd expect from a horror movie. But finally, someone decided this circus needed a fire marshal.
Point conference. Were in the front of turn out there in front of the conference with anti-Semitic slurs, and
I think it's important that every single person that attended that turning point, every Republican speak up against the SWAT, against the flags that were waved.
You let them in.
President, open your
You let them in and you knew what they were.
Right.
So you
Enter Charlie Kirk, a man unwilling to remain a spectator in the theater of chaos. Instead, he stepped straight into the ring, shook hands with the tiger, and dropped a $100 million lawsuit like a thunderclap. But this isn't about the money. It's about drawing a bold line in the sand against a tidal wave of smug, unearned certainty masquerading as wisdom. Kirk's legal strike isn't just a case. It's a cultural intervention. He's not simply taking on a daytime talk show. He's confronting a loudspeaker of mass hysteria, delivering a cease and desist to the emotional frenzy that mistakes shouting for substance and outrage for intellect. This isn't some flamboyant act of legal showmanship. It's a pointed stand against the weaponization of ignorance. Kirk's lawsuit feels like a long overdue, quiet down directed at the non-stop noise blasting from a set that seems duty-bound to fill every second with screeching. That $100 million isn't about ego or revenge. It's a wake-up call to a media landscape that's allowed this circus of self-righteousness to shape public discourse. In going after The View, Kirk is striking at more than just its panelists. He's targeting the culture of manufactured outrage that sustains them. It's a bold, maybe even quixotic move, but one that demands attention. Because when daytime TV starts looking like a parody of itself, someone has to step in and say enough.
Now we begin with a shocking apology just a short time ago from the ladies of The View to Turning Point USA. A war of words broke out after the conservative group was rallying the next generation of voters at its youth summit in Tampa, Florida this weekend. And the liberal panel just couldn't help themselves. The group sent a scathing cease and desist letter after hosts on The View suggested that Turning Point had embraced neo-Nazis who showed up outside.
Let's be brutally honest. The View isn't a talk show. It's a midday melodrama dressed in clashing outfits and even louder opinions. It's less of a round table and more of a revolving door of self-righteous sound bites where facts are lightly edited for convenience and opinions are served raw, then topped with a generous sprinkle of moral superiority. At the head of this philosophical potluck is Sunny Hostin, who traded courtroom authority for cards and studio lights. These days, her law degree feels more like a social media flex than a functional tool, as she casually throws around legal jargon with the flair of a YouTube guru peddling miracle oils. Now, in a twist of fate, irony has made a full comeback, with Sunny suddenly entangled in a real legal battle, one that requires more than caffeine-fueled commentary. And let's skip the predictable cries of silencing women. This isn't about gag orders. It's about consequences. Daytime TV may wear the costume of free expression, but that doesn't exempt it from responsibility, especially when off-the-cuff opinions turn into character assassinations. The legal fire knocking on their door isn't censorship. It's justice finally confronting the theatrics posing as meaningful dialogue. Charlie's lawsuit isn't a PR move, it's a reckoning. A long overdue demand for accountability after years of verbal hit and runs, now brought to a screeching halt with a call for evidence.
Let me kind of humble the audience a little bit. Donald Trump won by less than a point in Wisconsin, about 28,000 votes. He won by a point-ish, 1.2 in Michigan. And then he won by 1 point in Pennsylvania. And so, Megan, it is conceivable that without this record movement of youth vote, he doesn't.
For over a decade, The View has acted like a hall pass for unchecked rhetoric, where nuance gets shouted down, dissent is steamrolled, and smugness is served up with a splash of faux empowerment. What they parade as bold commentary often feels more like ideological theater, carefully crafted for viral moments and applause breaks. But somewhere between the cheers and the commercial cues, they seem to have forgotten that broadcasting opinions to millions comes with responsibilities, and sometimes with subpoenas. This isn't some inverted David versus Goliath fairy tale. It's about a media machine that's grown far too comfortable lobbing accusations from the safety of studio, assuming there will be no price to pay. Now, someone like Kirk is pulling back the curtain, showing what happens when non-stop chatter finally collides with consequences. He's not igniting a culture war. He's just pressing pause on the soapbox spectacle. He's doing what countless frustrated viewers have only dreamed of, demanding that reckless commentary finally be held accountable. Because in a world overflowing with headlines and hashtags, truth shouldn't be optional, and neither should responsibility. So next time the show rolls on, maybe skip the popcorn and grab a legal pad instead. The era of untouchable daytime drama may be nearing its final act, and honestly, it's long overdue.
Specifically, they're referring to the women, but of course, it's the non-college educated men as well who voted for Donald Trump. And the nerve of this woman to whom the country has given so much to try to dump on people who didn't go to college. Look at you. Look at your achievements. How do you like the so-called uneducated now?
And let's be clear, this isn't some crybaby tantrum. It's a calculated power move. Charlie's flipping the script on a show that's built its brand by vilifying dissent, forcing the reigning queens of commotion to defend their narratives outside the comfort zone of cards and clapping audiences. This isn't cancel culture. it's accountability. A long overdue moment where the loudest in the room are finally being told to lower the volume. And the irony is almost poetic. The View, which loves to drape itself in a flag of free speech, now finds itself having to explain just how free that speech really was when it casually dragged a public figure for sport. Sunny Hostin might want to dust off her law books, because this lawsuit isn't about ego, it's about exposure. Cue the panic. At ABC HQ, legal teams are poring over years of offhand slander, like it's sacred text, while producers scramble to reshape the show without it doubling as a misinformation megaphone. Meanwhile, the hosts sit comfortably on their velvet thrones, only now realizing the courtroom doesn't come with a built-in audience to cheer when they take cheap shots. And let's talk content. The View has spent years perfecting the art of manufactured outrage, turning trivial topics like coffee orders and sweater styles into full-blown moral crusades, all while basking in the glow of their own performative indignation.
If a liberal came to speak at University of Kentucky, they'd give an open mic like I just did to a conservative and had a discussion like this.
I certainly hope they would.
No, they wouldn't. Because speech is not a left-wing value. That is why they have to deploy shock troops called Antifa to go after everywhere I go. When I go to University of California, Davis next week, there has to be 120 police officers because of the threats, the violent threats of liberals that want me dead, that want to disrupt our events. There are no right-wing hecklers that come to
Their outrage machine never sleeps, fueled by carefully orchestrated indignation, synchronized nodding, and the kind of self-congratulatory applause that could light up a small town. But now, instead of facing a camera, they're facing a courtroom, blinking in confusion like deer caught in legal headlights. Suddenly, the once loud punditry morphs into a chorus of denial, as if they've all conveniently forgotten the years they spent gleefully hurling verbal grenades in every direction. These women have turned daytime television into a weapon, dishing out character assassinations between segments on skincare. They've served up slander like cafeteria slop, raw, messy, and unchecked. But now Charlie Kirk has stepped in. Not with a counterattack laced in drama, but with subpoenas and legal documents. He didn't show up to argue. He came armed with reinforcements. And make no mistake, this isn't just Kirk's personal crusade. It's a sharp critique, an indictment of a glitzy media machine dressed up as journalism while operating more like a sparkly echo chamber. This lawsuit doesn't merely ruffle feathers. It strips the whole peacock bare. It's a direct challenge not to individual hosts, but to the arrogant machinery that treats dissent as something to be silenced rather than discussed.
I don't want to say too much, but we're going to have a lot of fun at the Department of Education. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Can I tell you something? Like, I've had quite a few people contact me about that particular post. Like, I'm sure I have 1/100th of what you're getting, but people are contacting me about cabinet posts. I'm like, I got
look,
nothing.
I mean, yeah, I'm actually, after this conversation, heading to Mar-a-Lago for a week, and we have a lot to sift through, and if I could be helpful, I have asked. I want to be actively involved in all things education, as you can imagine.
This is more than just a public feud. It's a direct challenge to a media format that hides behind hot takes and canned laughter, while bulldozing anyone who dares to step outside their ideological lines. What we're witnessing isn't a courtroom drama. It's a reckoning, because eventually, even the loudest echo chamber meets someone immune to the noise. Someone who doesn't come to argue but to dismantle. And that $100 million, it's not just a figure. It's a siren screaming in the ears of every media bully who thought ridicule had no cost. You want to treat public figures like piñatas on national television? That's your choice. But don't be surprised when one of them swings back with a lawsuit instead of a snappy comeback. Sure, The View's ratings might surge. Controversy always draws eyes, but accountability draws lines. And Kirk's lawsuit has added weight to what's long been treated as fluff. This time, the hosts can't just smirk and talk their way out of it. And Sunny Hostin, oh Sunny, the self-proclaimed legal expert, now finds herself at the center of an actual legal storm. This isn't some on-air mock trial where you toss around words like intent and malice between sips of tea. This is real. The courtroom doesn't care about your followers or the flair of your monologues. It cares about facts, about truth, about the damage that reckless rhetoric can cause. Let's pause and appreciate the irony. Charlie Kirk, often mocked for being loud, is suing a show that built its empire on being louder. And instead of dodging the blows, he's swinging hard at the smug performance that daytime TV has become. Because let's be honest, The View stopped offering insight a long time ago. It's now a daily tantrum in couture, where bias isn't just present, it's aggressive. Every opposing thought is met with synchronized eye rolls, sarcastic applause, and Sunny's watered-down courtroom monologues. But this time, it's not Twitter backlash they're facing. It's a $100 million reality check. Sure, critics would dismiss it as performative, a PR stunt. But if this is performance, then hand Kirk an Oscar, because he's doing something The View never could, making noise that actually matters. His lawsuit is a loud, unmistakable line in the sand, calling out the mock trials disguised as breakfast table chatter. Fans of the show will defend it as satire, as protected speech, as mere opinion. But when you repeatedly misrepresent someone, ridicule their beliefs, and issue judgment before the first ad break, you stop being commentators and start becoming character assassins. This lawsuit won't destroy The View, but it might force it to finally reflect. Maybe it'll make them hesitate before turning people into punchlines. Maybe it'll remind them that words have weight, and sometimes consequences. The audience deserves more than a shouting match in designer heels. They deserve clarity, fairness, maybe even a little humility, none of which The View has delivered in years. Thanks to Charlie Kirk, they might finally be held to a higher standard than who can deliver the sassiest eye roll. Because in the end, this lawsuit isn't just legal, it's symbolic. It calls out a media culture where mockery pretends to be analysis and noise drowns out truth. It's time to reset the volume. And maybe, just maybe, this courtroom showdown is the mute button we never knew we needed as oh yes. Laugh if you must. But beneath the spectacle is a serious question of responsibility. And The View is finally being asked to answer for all the wrong ones it spent years asking.